on and we don't go into a police state, or we don't have more false flags in the country, if this, what I believe is going to be a terrible war happening in Yemen, if that does not occur, then good. But everything that I've gathered, all my information, my contacts have told me otherwise.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, I know you have some interesting abilities associated with water. Isn't that right? And I remember that dolphins have been used by the military to actually perform feats and to actually do, you know, operations basically.
Yes.
Over by Saudi Arabia and you know, over in that area. So I'm thinking that with this, what's going on in the Gulf of Aden, basically there has to be something involving dolphins and possibly other, you know, sea animals like whales. But I'm just curious, has there been any information about how about the dolphins in that area or anything else?
The only information that I have for a fact, which is public information, is that, you know, dolphins are being used in all the waters around the Middle East for reconnaissance missions. They actually have dolphins that are trained, that have actual surveillance equipment that are attached to them for, you know, looking for underwater mines, looking for bombs under piers, even under ships, oil rigs, and even information gathering. They have dolphins that are set up with certain information sound recording equipment that actually can record sound on land that travels via through the water, because sound travels at a much greater distance and can keep its real concentrated frequency much longer underwater than it can in open air. Do I have any information that dolphins are specifically being used in the Gulf of Aden for whatever intents and purposes with this Stargate? No, I don't. But based on my direct work with dolphins, with Project Seagate, I would not be surprised, because dolphins have been discovered because of their frequencies, because of other abilities that dolphins have that people are not aware of. They discovered a while ago, you know, however long, at least I know for at least 20 or maybe even 30 years, that dolphins directly have, because of their frequency, because of what they can do, are almost used as a medium for travel via the Seagate.
What do you mean by that? Travel? Are you talking about time travel?
I'm talking about not just time travel, I'm talking about traveling to other locations in the universe.
Okay, and how are dolphins used in that regard?
It was found that, well, with the Seagate, everything is done, frequencies which are used, which they found, frequencies are used to actually put you on the molecular level in a different state. This way your body can actually handle traveling great distances.
Okay, I know what you mean. You mean, in other words, if humans are put in contact with dolphins and do what's called in training,
Yes.
they get aligned on the same frequency as a dolphin, and that heightens the human awareness, such that if you then, I'm just, you know, I'm extrapolating here, but because I've swam with dolphins and I know this happened to me, I'm guessing that's kind of what you mean.
You're absolutely, you're on the right track. Yes. One of the things that they did that I was a part of was called, let me remember what it was, psychic echolocation. What's the word I'm looking for? This always happens when I start talking about this. I'm sorry. Sometimes my mind goes blank. What they discovered, and it can't just be any human, it has to be people that have received certain training, mainly people that have some amount of psychic ability. They've learned that they could put a person in with these dolphins, and actually it would cause deep molecular and psychic vibrations to happen, where the dolphin is almost used, it is used as a medium, and this person becomes a conductor, and they coexist in this way so that it really heightens the senses of the psyche of a person.
Right. And so then what would happen? I mean, what would be, I mean, this is, I guess we're kind of going off into the area of speculation, although it occurs to me that perhaps this is part of your buried memories.
This is the subject that I myself have been working the most intensely on. The whole thing with the Gulf of Aden just kind of fell into my lap through the people I know, and then taking it back to the false flag operations that I'd helped orchestrate from July of 2008 till the beginning of March of 2009. Also meeting individuals that were black ops that had been really, in a way, blackmailed to be in this country to do false flag operations, specifically military personnel from other countries that were of Middle Eastern descent. They didn't care if they were, if their family had originally come from Iraq or Pakistan or India. It didn't matter. As long as they had the training.
And they looked the part.
And they looked the part.
Is the point. Okay.
Yes.
So you were involved in these so-called false flag operations. Can you describe a false flag operation that you were a part of?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Well, one of the false flag operations was where the 5,000 pounds of C4 mysteriously disappeared from a munitions train heading to Camp Pendleton. After that, Twin Palms police force started working with the Marine Corps. A bunch of military vehicles, specifically Humvees, from their motor pool were being taken, but were not being signed out. But then when certain individuals were even asking, even when I asked about it, don't question this, And Twin Palms was doing random DUI checks. Now, if people know this, the military are not allowed to do in-country security checkpoints, DUI checkpoints, anything involved with the police. That's what the police are for. When that begins to happen, that is a preemptive strike to implement police state nationwide. Absolutely. Then there were even a bigger military presence that was happening, of all places, in Pasadena. This doesn't surprise me because Pasadena is really a trifecta of some very deep military operations. Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, the Parsons Corporation. I encourage people who are going to see this, look into the history of the Parsons Corporation in Pasadena, and you will be disgusted with what they have been a part of, especially recently with putting up certain kinds of hospitals in Iraq. And then, of course, I could really get into things that like Jordan Maxwell and I have talked about as far as the OTO, which, the headquarters of the OTO in North America is in Pasadena.
Right.
So where I live in Pasadena, I'm surrounded by some very awful things.
So we're talking about a hotbed of the Illuminati, but we're also talking about a military presence.
Yes, in fact, specifically I want to say it was December 28th, if I'm completely accurate, December 28th of 2008, there was a big military movement that happened straight downtown Pasadena. Hundreds of people witnessed it. Never made the news. It was a convoy of about 24 vehicles. We're talking Humvees, armored personnel carrier, chemical trucks, tankers, deuce and halves, which are the big, huge trucks you usually see with the canopies over them. They were all white. They were what I have been a part of. They were absolute UN vehicles.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like UN.
But they didn't have UN marked on them. They didn't even have license plates.
I see.
They moved through Pasadena and moved to a different location. On that same day, I was in Pasadena with a team of plainclothes, not just local police, but Marine Corps, armed, walking the streets, in communication with everybody else while this was happening. It was not necessarily a false flag operation. More often than not is a terrorist attack, like 9/11.
So what was going on with the white
This
caravan was more of a preparation?
It was
Is
a
that the
false
idea?
flag training operation
I see.
in preparation for an actual false flag. Because even, you have war games. The military does war games. What are war games? War games are training for actual war. Well, this is kind of a war game, but it's a false flag game training operation.
Okay,
a
and
drill.
when we say false flag, what we're talking about is something where a terrorist event will happen where actually the terrorist is actually working for, and the operation, it is an op, and it is conducted by, in essence, the in-country personnel. In other words,
Oh, yes.
the United States, the government, the agencies, or the black government, the black.
Absolutely.
Secret projects.
And, yes, that's the biggest thing that people need to understand. When it's a false flag operation that happens in country, the people that are in charge of the black operations that happen with that country, they're the ones who have orchestrated it. The bombings that happened in the subways in England, that was a England false flag operation. The bombings that happened in Spain,
Right. What about that?
false
Also,
flag.
yeah.
Absolutely, because it all related to what? Taliban and Al-Qaeda. What's truly Taliban and Al-Qaeda? It is a network to allow false flag operations to happen. You had mentioned about, the people that are used are aware of it. People have to understand that more often than not, the people that are used have been mind controlled. They have been taken, they have been mind controlled, and they're doing it because they are under another state of mind. The one that happened on Christmas Day, he says that, he had, all of a sudden, there was reports that he was almost in a trance when it occurred, and afterward, and that he has no recollection.
Who are you talking about?
The gentleman, I don't remember his name, the actual person, the underwear bomber, as they're labeling him now.
Oh, okay, yes.
There was reports that he was in a trance. There's even a person that's come out now, a husband and wife that were on the plane.
Sure.
They were on the news saying that they had contacted the FBI because this tall, well-dressed, wealthy-looking man of Indian or descent had taken this kid, and actually they witnessed him saying he doesn't have a passport, but he's from, I think it was Nigeria, and we do this all the time there. Yeah, they actually quote, "We do this all the time there," and they let him through.
Okay.
People need to be aware that that's happening and need to question why.
Okay, so but you yourself, you're saying over a year ago you saw convoys and so on going on here in California, like a buildup of military even here. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There's been a huge buildup of military in Southern California.
Do you have any idea why?
There's a lot of military bases in California. California is very much a key region for military movement. I myself have been to 2 underground bases in California. One that's in the San Diego area, and another one that's in the San Francisco Bay, which is known as a munitions naval weapon base that has a skeleton crew. Probably a lot of people don't know about it. It is located in the San Francisco Bay Area, and all you can see from the water are 3 very large U-shaped piers where trains can go on. There's a lot more to that base than what people see. I mean, they have a huge facility under it. It's massive.
Okay, and have you
No.
been there, or were you told about this?
No, I've been there.
Oh, okay.
I was there. I was
Okay.
there in 2000, 2001, and then in the first part 2002 before I went to become part of the project in the Caribbean.
Okay. Okay, so I guess what I want to do here is just make sure that we've gotten the information that you wanted to get out there specifically, around the Gulf of Aden.
Okay, so just to clarify why I was coming out right now, I couldn't, you and I spoke, this had to get out now because time is of the essence. False flag operations are becoming more, are going to be happening more, not just in the United States, but in other countries that are having direct involvement with the Gulf of Aden and Yemen. I will not be surprised if we will see some more bombings or terrorist attacks happen in places like in Yemen itself. It's going to happen in Yemen because they need that to get the masses to support what they're doing so that there isn't questioning. There's going to be more false flag operations happening here in the country. They could be as small as more military checkpoints, or they could be as big as another actual attack attempt. It's going to happen. This is all happening to build up justification, like what happened with 9/11. They need this justification so people don't question, so you continue to be sheep. So that they can finally, go to war. The new war on terrorism, Yemen is ground zero for that. Why is this happening? It's happening because of this Stargate that's just off the coast of Yemen, in the Gulf of Aden. Why they're doing this? I've given my two theories. Theory one, we have friendly extraterrestrials that have opened it for a reason. What that reason is yet, I do not know. But this will not be the last I'm working on. I'm not stopping after this. I'm going to be digging very deep. I'm going to be continuing working on this, and as I get new information, you'll be getting the information, everything I get, Carrie. Is this friendly ETs have opened up for some reason? That could be. And it could be that now we have the major heavy hitter countries from all over the world who have brought in warships, not cargo ships, but warships by the masses that are literally in this giant circle that have created this perimeter. They've even, is there scientific research there where a certain doctor who attempted suicide, oh yes, that worked directly for this research company, said the world needs to know, and then all of a sudden unexplainably went crazy and tried to kill herself, who worked for a company that the information has gotten out that are doing research on combining alien and human DNA.
Okay. Now I have to tell you that last night we had contact with a whistleblower. And this is just one of those synchronicities that goes on with Project Camelot. Today we were having this interview with you. This was planned ahead. And last night, inadvertently, we got in touch with a whistleblower who has worked for the military, actually Space Command, and was talking about the Gulf of Aden. And I didn't get all the information, even though we talked for like 6 hours, and we will release that pretty soon, that interview. But he was saying, he was talking about synthetic beings, synthetic robots for all intents and purposes. Project Camelot was in touch with a secret source last night who was talking about synthetic beings and basically, I guess, some form of biological robot, I guess, that are being created, and some which may be also coming here, in other words. And so I am wondering whether or not the Gulf of Aden is specifically connected with a possible invasion of these synthetic beings. Is there anything that, any hookup that you know of in this regard?
There has been talk about it amongst me and some other people that I'm in direct contact with that were part of multiple projects under MKUltra. That's something that we've discussed, but we weren't sure if we really wanted to go public with that just yet because, what I'm saying already and what people are going to say is going to invoke fear. But with fear can build strength, and using that fear, turn it around to really find out what's going on. But yes,
Okay.
It's something that we have talked about, that it indeed is being used to bring in synthetic beings that were made off planet.
Okay.
Now, I'm just curious. Now I've got a question for you. I'm going
Sure.
to turn around and ask you a question. Your contact last night, when he was talking about these synthetic beings that are being created on planet, I'm curious if he's referring to the Omega program.
Okay, he didn't name that program. He simply was referring to both aspects. In other words,
Okay.
the one which is that the military in China as well as the U.S. has been creating these beings, and that there is also, and it was really interesting. And obviously, we're going to be releasing the interview shortly, but he was talking about these beings that were created in association on Atlantis, who were then taken off planet to another planet and allowed to develop. Basically, they developed themselves. However, they're synthetic. For all intents and purposes, they don't have a soul, and that they are now, for some reason, returning to our planet, and that they are, let's say, not happy, and they are also, and this is the testimony from our witness. So it just dovetails in a very interesting way. Now, this person was not able to say whether they had arrived yet. I think that he was indicating that they had not, but I'd have to go back over the transcript to verify that.
From the information that I've been able to gather, my intuition says that they are currently arriving because of the huge electromagnetic anomaly that happened specifically on January 5th of this year, 2010.
Okay, are you talking about the blue spiral over Norway?
There has been speculation that blue spiral and other spirals have been showing up over Norway. Could that be related to this? It could be. I don't have enough information to say yes or no. I would not be surprised, though. If in some way it has direct relation to it, I would not be surprised. But I don't want to say absolute.
Okay.
I'll allow people to do their own research, and I'm going to continue to do my research. It's interesting what you just mentioned about the soulless beings, because the project that I was mainly a part of, the project that I was in reality, from the time I was a child, was prepared for. And that's, again, we will get into that on the next interview. Project Seagate. Project Seagate was a major project with a huge underground base location, and they were working on many different sub-projects. Project Seagate is almost like a subversion of MK Ultra. Project Seagate, one location, but had many sub-projects. Everything from the Human Dolphin Super Soldier program to an Omega program where they were making soulless beings for remote viewing and actual, via the Seagate, being able to put people, and yes, this is real people, their astral self, their energy, their soul, into one of these robots for covert operations, so that if the body gets killed, they are able to extract and put it in. I have people that I know that this has happened to, and we have absolute evidence of this happening.
So this is a lot like Avatar, basically. You're talking about military
yes.
personnel that basically they're going in, inhabiting these robotic beings.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And also they found that it was easier to have this for traveling for operations through the Seagate, off planet. My specific role, which I don't want to get into right now because it's very complicated, but I will say that my involvement with Project Seagate was very high up, very in depth, and I've been to some interesting locations.
Okay. Do you think that you yourself were doing some of this? I don't know. having your essence in essence go into one of these robotic beings and travel, or is your experience different than that?
I worked with people that did that, but because
Okay.
of my specific training, as far as alterations that were done to my body, even as a young child, some memories are coming back that even my parents have no recollection of. I was able to physically be relocated because of what was done to me. And there's another person that that you were in contact with who was able to do the same thing, who actually was a person I worked with closely that was there.
Okay.
And this person who, when the time comes, this person will be talking to you.
Sure.
Someone you already talked to will be speaking of the Project Seagate as well.
Okay, and you've some unique abilities in terms of water. Is there a thought that you yourself were, I don't know, your DNA was combined with, for example, a dolphin? Is that possible?
I'm learning new things about myself almost every day. With me, anything is really possible because I've been told some things by reliable sources that have completely blown me away. And in fact, I'm still having a hard time. I mean, I accept it. I know it's true, but it's very hard to deal with because, I mean, my body has been through a living hell. I had some questionable experimentations that were done to me as a child that I absolutely remember. Well, I'll just say this. The reason why I was... everything began for me from the time I was 3 years old. I have an absolute memory that I've been able to get confirmed from family where I was taken to a facility by a certain relative. I will mention that when I do my full interview, who I do not have contact with, was not allowed to have contact with when I was 3 years old. And I was thrown into a pool and they induced me to drown. I remember laying then on a slab next to this pool, throwing up and coughing up water, and then seeing these men around me and saying, "We have one." I remember hearing that. This is not a dream, this is not fantasy, this is absolute. Sometimes I still wake up with having night terrors and flashbacks about this. I've always been able to hold my breath for a long time without having to do the hyperventilating. I've always had a very interesting relationship with water. I have several people that you know that can absolutely, with complete honesty, tell you of accounts that they've witnessed of things that have happened to me with water. I have been told not to do any kind of soaking in water because of something which I will reveal in the next interview, which could happen.
Okay, so let me, rather than go down that road, since this interview is about another matter,
Yes.
let's go back to the Gulf of Aden and talk about the false flag subject in terms of what specifically, if anything, has been left out of this interview so far, because I think we could wrap this up as it is.
Yes.
I can't think of any particular areas that we might not have covered, but then maybe something might occur to you. So I want to make sure that we've covered this topic, that you've gotten out the word about what you think is coming in regard to the buildup of the military there. Any other random thoughts that or information, pieces of information that you might have that would be pertinent for the public to be aware of here?
Don't travel to the Middle East this year. Do not travel there, do not go there, because they do not care about collateral damage. They proved that with 9/11. They proved that with the Oklahoma bombing. They proved that on December 25th. They proved that at Fort Hood. They do not care. You are an expendable piece of property to the global elite, to Mark Ultra, to governments all around the world. I have just a really deep, sinking, dark feeling that there's going to be a lot of death. I've been seeing death. I've been having visions of some really horrible scenarios that could definitely are possible, not just in the Middle East, specifically Yemen, but in country. Do your research. Everything that I have said in this interview and that Carrie has said, please, I mean, what I'm telling you is absolute, and I've also specified what was theory, what was my intuition, and I've even labeled some sources where I gathered information. Everybody that sees this interview, I encourage you to do the same. Don't just take my word for it. Because if you just take my word for it, you're doing the same as watching TV or watching the movies and taking their word for it. You need to do the research on your own, because that will allow you to open your mind and really give you self-empowerment. The greatest gift humanity was ever given was free will, and as long as you allow your free will to keep working, you will open up to what's occurring. False flags are going to be happening more. Based on my intuition and my intelligence that I have gathered, something else big is going to happen in the United States, and it's all being done to invoke this war on terror in Yemen for movement with the Seagate. Is it going to be to help escort these beings from off planet, or are these friendly beings are trying to do something, and we're already in a galactic war that's happening now. Believe it or not, it's happening. But with that war, there are many different battles occurring, and we are on the brink of a new battle. This is definitely, I have no doubt about that. This is going to be another battle of the galactic war, and what people need to realize is that this planet is a war prize. It always has been. There's always been conflict for this planet, and there are many reasons which I could get into, but God, that would go on and on and on. Is there any other information that I can think of that people need to know about? Not at this time. Just know, specifically, you will find that the major countries that have warships, and I want to emphasize, these are warships, everybody, the United Kingdom, Russia, China, Japan, Germany, NATO, the UN, and the now mercenary group Z, which is more commonly known as Blackwater. There are scientific research corporations there right now under multinational contract doing heavy research on alien human DNA. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself, why was there a doctor that worked for this company that unexplainably said, the Earth, the people of the world have to be notified. It's quoted in an article that I found, and attempted suicide because she knew something, she was part of something, she had her own self-awakening, and the information she has was so great, so overwhelming, that she tried to kill herself. But did she really try to kill herself, or was this a mind-controlled, attempt to kill herself? Three of the people that I was in contact with, that I was working with, when I myself was helping orchestrate false flag events in 2008 and in the beginning of 2009, unexpectedly disappeared when they themselves became more self-aware and realized what they were doing was wrong. I have emails from certain personnel that contacted me and said that they were under house arrest in 29 Palms. Right after this, and I need to say this because this shows the level of seriousness that this is at. The person that I was in contact with, Captain Scott Seidner, I will say his name because he has disappeared. The place that he lived at, which was not too far from where I was living, I went to where he was living because I lost communication. He'd given me a document that actually talks about the preparation, a document that was drafted in, I believe, in 2000 for the agenda going all the way up to 2015. A document that was never supposed to leave the hands of certain personnel. I have 22 pages of that document that I have shared with you, Carrie. I'm getting off track. This person, Scott Seidner, Captain Scott Seidner, who'd given me this information, who started realizing things were wrong, up and disappeared. Where he lived, I went and talked to the manager. They would not tell me, oh, we had no Scott Seidner living here. His phone became disconnected. The people I was in contact with were disappearing left and right. I myself became under heavy surveillance, even had an attempt on my life. Yes, that did happen last year, where on one occasion where I first thought it was an accident until I got more information that no, it was not necessarily an attempt on my life, but it was what they do a lot, which they're doing with a lot of people I'm in contact with. It was a scare tactic. They're trying to shut me up. I just got absolute confirmation. And I'd like to emphasize on that absolute confirmation, because that's what I have to have before I will really say indefinite. The conference that, unfortunately is having so many complications, the MK Ultra Mind Control Conference, I received an anonymous tip, and then through contacts of mine saying that there was going to be an attempt on me at the conference, because they know that I'm getting ready to whistleblow a project that is the absolute most secret, kept undercover project in the world, and that is Project Seagate.
Okay, so thank you very much, Aaron Mccollum, and I assume that you want this video to go out as is.
Yes.
In other words, we can talk about making it only audio. We can talk about possibly putting it into just a transcript, a written transcript, if you at a later date decide to do so. But at this moment, is it your feeling that you want this to go on the internet as is?
If I am going to really come out as a credible witness, I think that's what you're really calling them now. You're not whistleblower, using the term witness, or
both.
Okay, if I'm going to be an actual, because this interview is going to be followed up with the full interview of how I came to be who I am now, and my whole history of the training I got as a kid. I'm going to be blowing something wide open that you and I have talked about. If I am going to have credibility, if I'm going to have people really see me, they need to see me as a person. They need to know. And yes, I have the tattoos and the earrings, but there's a reason, which I will be explaining why I look the way I do now. But if I am going to be a legitimate, real person, and also because there's people that I'm in contact with that I notified that I was going to be doing this, and you and I talked about it, to see my face, to see that yes, I am real, I am not some man behind the Iron Curtain, I'm not some deep throat in a parking garage. They need to see it as a whole.
Okay.
They need to see my face. For me, eye contact, seeing the person is very much, a lot more empowering.
Okay.
And, my life has already been threatened and attempts have been made. I have scars from knife wounds from almost getting killed.
Okay.
But, being who I am, I lack the emotion of fear. And I'm not afraid. And I need to do this.
Okay, thank you very much. I also, just as a caveat, want to say here that isn't it true that your connection with Camelot, and specifically with Duncan O'Finian, has been instrumental in you getting in touch with some of this?
Yes. When a friend of mine first introduced me to Project Camelot, I was very interested, because I was starting to have some memories come back. And then this friend of mine showed me the Duncan O'Finian and the Dave Corso interview, and it took everything not to break down and cry, because there was something, I couldn't remember, when I saw Duncan, when I saw Dave, there was something inside that was just feeding me, and I couldn't figure out what. And then when Duncan and Dave mentioned St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, my head literally hurt. It was like I was walking in this hallway and all these doors opened. And I can tell you, and I will be saying this in my interview, that Duncan and Dave have memory lapses of what happened in St. Thomas. I will be able to tell you, and I've talked to Duncan and Dave about this, what happened. Yes, Dave and Duncan and I did in fact do operations together. We have confirmed it, we know it, and even another soon-to-be whistleblower was directly involved with Project Seagate with me. Me contacting you, seeing this, was not a coincidence. There's no such thing as a coincidence. This was all the way it was supposed to be. And, you know, I owe a big thank you to you for, you know, bringing me to the conference. And it was really a reunion between Duncan, Dave, and the other friend who I promised I wouldn't say this person's name. You know, I'll leave that up to this person.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that, you know, we gave kind of a thank you or a nod of the head to Duncan O'Finian and Dave Corso.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, Dave and I, we see each other all the time. I've been regularly going to his place, and Duncan's been really busy, but there were a couple times after the conference when I was able to speak with him and actually see him when he was in LA filming the Manchurian Candidate. By the way, I want to pitch that. If you haven't seen what's titled as the Manchurian Candidate episode of Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, it's on True TV. You can find it on YouTube now. An absolute must. It was so well done. I was so impressed with how well it was done. So that's my little pitch for that. Just helping out my friends Dave and Duncan, who are also working hard to get the word out.
Okay. Thank you very much. And today is January 9th?
Yes, it is.
2010.
It's Dave Corso's birthday today.
There you go.
I sent him a birthday card.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.